In this session, I am going to discuss about oil spillage. This is a highly probable question for this year's mains examination, as it is in current affair. Now, recently we had an oil spillage in Ennur coast in Chennai. So, let's see the model question regarding this topic first. And the question is like this: the recent oil spill which hit the Ennur coast in Chennai reveals the India's unpreparedness in cases of such disasters. Evaluate the various impacts of the oil spillage and suggest the way forward. Okay. Now, regarding this question, we have to address three parts. One, what is India's unpreparedness? What was our mismanagement regarding this particular Ennur oil spillage? And in the real question, or where you have to give more word limit, is actually the various impacts of oil spillage and the way forward. Okay, so your answer should be having these three subheadings as well as content regarding the unpreparedness as well as the impact of oil spillage and the way forward. Now let's see what are the points which we can include under these main subheadings. Here in this question, first of all, as an introduction, you can start your answer by saying what was the unpreparedness, how was this Ennur oil spillage, how was it mismanaged? Okay, and regarding that aspect, you can bring certain points. One is late to respond. During this Ennur oil spillage, initially we were not able to contain that, so that its environmental impacts were huge and it was sustained for a long time because we were very late to respond. Okay, so that can be seen as one of the unpreparedness. Then poor information dissemination. In the sense, initially what the government tried to do there, they tried to withhold the information. This will have huge impact on the community living there. If they eat the fish during this oil spillage, it can cause their health hazards, as well as it can lead to fire hazards or anything. But in any case, if the oil spillage is taking place, governments shouldn't actually withhold the information, rather than they should implement proper information dissemination. The next point is lack of coordination and accountability among different government agencies. Regarding issues of oil spillage, we are having a national contingency plan, and according to that, various authorities are involved. State government and the port authority as well as the central government is involved. So unless we are having a proper coordination between these various authorities, it will be very hard to respond properly in the case of an oil spillage. Now another thing, insufficient equipment. Recently, especially in the case of the Ennur spillage, we saw many communities coming forward to help, but they were lacking proper equipment and things like that. This can be seen as a mismanagement or the unpreparedness India is having in the case of solving the issues of oil spillage. Next one, non-implementation of standard operating procedure. Here the standard operating procedure means the national contingency plan, and as I already said, since there are various authorities involved, lack of coordination between them, and we may not be having a proper procedure to follow, and this can cost us time. And in cases of this Ennur oil spillage, it actually enabled the oil spillage to reach faraway places. It should have been contained at the initial stage itself, and that is there because of the improper standard operating procedure. Next, let's see what are the impacts of oil spillage. And the major impacts can be classified as three things regarding environment and then human health and the economic impact. And under each heading, you can bring up certain variety of points. For example, oil slick prevents sunlight. The oil slick lying on the surface of the ocean, they will be preventing the sunlight, and if the sunlight doesn't reach the depth of the ocean, this will be having adverse effects on the marine organisms and especially phytoplanktons. Then oil penetration into the structure of plumage of birds and the fur of animals. If the marine animals as well as birds get trapped inside this oil spillage, what happens is that they will be unable to fly, and their temperature withstanding capability and things like that will be affected. In effect, in long term, they will die off because if they are getting trapped or if the oil is penetrating into their fur. Next, ecologically sensitive region. If the oil spillage is taking place in regions of sensitive regions, what happens is that it can destroy those regions. And here in the case of Ennur oil spillage, you can specifically mention the case of olive ridley turtle, because it took place in January, and January was the breeding time for olive ridley turtle. And if the oil from this spillage, when it reaches the beaches, obviously it did, and when it reaches the beaches, it will destroy their habitat. And Pulikkad Lake bird sanctuary as well as Ennur Creek, especially the importance can be given to Ennur Creek and these 3 points, and they are very ecologically sensitive areas and they need to be protected. And for that, the oil spillage, it needs to be contained in the initial stage itself. They shouldn't be allowed to reach the beaches. And next one, oil spillage damages beach, marshlands and fragile aquatic ecosystems. And here, I mean, you can select 3 points from here. What I suggest is the first 3 points you can suggest and you can include under the environmental impacts of oil spillage. Next, the human health. Now, how is oil spillage affecting the human health? Mainly due to biomagnification. The heavy metals which are poisonous, it will get into our food chain and thereby causing health hazards. If we eat the fishes from the places where having this oil spillage, it can cause health hazards. Similar manner, if the oil spillage reaches the beaches and it can contaminate the drinking water sources. And oil spillage represents an immediate fire hazard. In the sense, if the region having this oil spillage, if it starts to burn, what happens is that it can result in air pollution. And the regions lying in the windward regions of this oil spillage, all these air pollutants will be carried towards those regions, causing them air pollution as well as specifically respiratory problems. So in these 3 manners, we can say that human health will get impacted due to oil spillage. And third one, economic impact, mainly in tourism industries as well as marine resource extraction industries. These 2 industries will get affected due to the oil spillage. And another point you can add up there, I mean, we are losing the oil, right? That also will cost, and that is also having an economic cost. So these are the main impacts of oil spillage. Now let's see how or what is a way forward and how the oil spillage it can be solved. Now regarding the way forward, mainly we are having administrative measures. Now the oil spillage, how it can be solved due to by the administrative measures only it can be solved. And one important point you can say there is stage-wise contingency plan. As I already said, we are having a national contingency plan, but the coastal states, they should be having a separate state contingency plan. Then only their preparedness will be proper manner, and they will be able to respond to such large-scale oil spillages in correct time. Okay. And second one, monitoring the efficacy of National Oil Spillage Disaster Contingency Plan. I mean, as in the other cases, like we are having proper rules and plans, but the problem is that it may not be getting properly implemented. And here in the case of National Oil Spill Disaster Contingency Plan, I mean, the proper equipments and everything should be there, but it was not. I mean, as in the case of Ennur oil spillage, we witnessed that the coastal guard, they were facing lack of proper equipments, and they have to rely on unscientific measures. And third one, clear recognition of punitive element in compensating environmental harm. I mean, in this case of Ennur oil spillage, I mean, the cleaning process and recovery process, everything was majorly done by government as well as like the NGOs and the communities there. Actually, who did the pollution, and they should be made accountable, right? And in order for that, for doing the environmental damage, if you are having a clear-cut definition for the punishments or the penalties given to them, it can be, the cost recovery can be made from this punitive measurements. And next one, amending the Merchant Shipping Act in order to make them in line with the International Convention of Civil Liability for Bunker Oil Pollution Damage. And again, this will help us to recover the cost. Who is creating this oil pollution, and this amendment will help us in recovering the cost from them. And the next solution, you can say, I mean, as per the National Contingency Plan, the Coastal Guard is having the responsibility for coordinating the efforts in order to solve the oil spillage. Okay, but what happens is that they won't be having proper drainage, or like they are not having statutory backing as well as the equipment and funding necessary for this this kind of response measures, and they should be empowered. The Coastal Guard should be empowered in order to solve these issues in long term, or in any cases of future event, if it need to be properly solved, if it needs to be contained within its limits, we have to empower the Coastal Guard. And another technological solutions you can bring up there is bioremediation. Actually, in the case of Ennur oil spillage also, we have brought up bioremediation, or we have done the bioremediation, in the sense we will be using bacteria which can decompose this oil, and it's a sustainable way of solving the problem of oil spillage. Then tracking source of pollution, and example you can bring up there tar balls. In the sense, I mean, we will be using the tar balls, we will be sampling these tar balls, and we can identify the source of the oil spillage. Okay, so with all these administrative measures, you can solve the issue of oil spillage. And as a conclusion to the oil spillage, you can bring up here, I mean, as the international convention says, International Convention on Oil Pollution Preparedness, Response and Cooperation, we are actually bound to solve the problems of oil spillage. I mean, if a nation is having oil pollution or polluting the oil, it is not only affecting them, right? It is having a long-term effect on other nations also. So we are following international convention, and according to that, India is a signatory to this convention, and according to them, I mean, as we are a signatory to them, we are bound to solve the problems of oil spillage. So by saying this thing, you can conclude your answer.